Hook 1. How many hours of your life have been drained by pointless arguments, fights that left you more exhausted than empowered? Hook 2. What if the real strength isn't found in proving you're right, but in choosing not to react at all? Hook 3. Today we'll explore a powerful lesson inspired by Buddhist wisdom, the life-changing art of ignoring, not out of weakness, but out of deep inner strength. Think about it. How often have you found yourself trapped in an argument that seemed important in the moment, only to realize later it led nowhere? The tension, the frustration, the raised voices. What did it truly bring you, other than stress? There's a hidden power that most people never master. It isn't flashy, it isn't loud, but it has the potential to transform your inner world and, by extension, your entire life. It's the power of not reacting, the power of ignoring, not with cold indifference, but with grounded, conscious wisdom. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe that when someone challenges or insults us, we must respond, stand our ground, defend our pride. But what if that automatic reaction is exactly what the other person wants? Let's pause for a second and consider. When someone throws a cruel comment your way, do they really want a thoughtful dialogue? What they seek is a reaction, a flare of emotion, a rise. Because the moment you react, they gain power. You've given them control, not just over the conversation, but over your emotional state. It's like being on a boat in open waters, peacefully sailing toward your destination. Suddenly, someone from the shore throws a rock. Instead of continuing your journey, you stop. You pick up the rock, throw it back, and in doing so, you've delayed yourself, drifted off course, and lost energy for something that didn't even deserve your attention. The most dangerous part? Reactivity becomes a reflex. Someone says something hurtful, and before you know it, you're drawn into a heated exchange. Your voice rises, your pulse quickens, and you feel like you have to defend your point. But what do we actually gain? How many arguments have ended with both sides shaking hands, smiling, and saying, "Wow, that was so productive"? Rarely, if ever. Because most conflicts aren't about mutual understanding, they're about ego. The ego wants to win, it wants to feel superior, it wants validation. But here's the paradox. Real strength doesn't come from proving anything, it comes from not needing to. There's a well-known Buddhist story about a man who was insulted in public. Instead of replying, he simply smiled and walked away. A bystander asked, "Why didn't you respond?" The man answered, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does it still belong? That gift is the other person's anger, their criticism, their poison, and when we choose to accept it, when we react, we let it in, we carry it. But when we don't, it stays with them. Every time we react without reflection, we allow someone else's emotions to dictate ours. But you don't have to accept every invitation to conflict. Not every battle is worth entering, and not every comment deserves your energy. Choosing to ignore isn't weakness, it's strength in stillness. It's the art of stepping back, breathing, and choosing peace over pride. The next time someone tries to provoke you, try this. Do nothing. Just observe. Watch their expectation crumble in silence. That's when the real power shifts, because the one who remains calm, who doesn't get pulled into the drama, is the one who holds true control. Why do we argue so much, even when we know it leads nowhere? It's like throwing a stone into a calm pond. The ripples spread for a moment, then fade. The water returns to stillness. But unlike water, we tend to cling to the disturbance. we become the ripples. We let conflict define our mood, our day, even our relationships. And here's the deeper truth. Most of our arguments aren't really about facts or ideas. They're about identity. When someone disagrees with us, we don't just hear a different view. We feel personally threatened. So we fight, not to understand, but to protect the fragile image of who we think we are. But have you ever noticed? Many arguments don't come from truth-seeking at all. They come from unresolved emotion, a bad day, insecurity, frustration looking for a target. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into why so many of our conflicts are driven not by logic but by wounded emotion, and how breaking this cycle can help us reclaim our peace. In the last part, we uncovered a powerful truth. Many arguments aren't about truth, they're about ego. And often, the fire isn't in the topic. It's in the unresolved emotions people carry with them. Most of the time, what seems like a disagreement on the surface is really just emotional baggage, frustration, anger, insecurity, waiting to be offloaded. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When you choose to engage in someone else's emotional chaos, you don't just respond, you absorb. Their tension becomes your tension. Their chaos starts to swirl inside you. What started as a harmless back and forth suddenly escalates into a full-blown emotional battlefield. The original topic? Forgotten. The goal? No longer clarity or understanding. Now it's just about winning. But winning what, exactly? What's the prize for coming out on top in an argument with someone who never truly listened? Is it satisfaction? Or is it just more exhaustion, more tension, more silence between you and someone who used to feel close? We argue with our partners, our friends, even strangers online, and by the end of the day, we're drained. Not because anything meaningful changed, but because we gave our energy to battles that weren't worth fighting in the first place. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering comes from attachment. Attachment to being right, to being understood, to needing validation. And when someone disagrees with us, we take it personally, as though disagreement somehow diminishes our worth. But what if it didn't? What if we let go of that attachment? What if we stopped seeing every disagreement as a threat to our identity? Because here's the truth. Your truth doesn't require consensus. You don't need everyone to agree with you. And the moment you realize that, you step into a freedom most people never taste. That's where the real power of non-reaction begins. It's not about silencing yourself or avoiding meaningful dialogue. It's about learning to distinguish between conversations that nourish your soul and those that simply deplete it. It's knowing when to speak and when to walk away. Because ignoring isn't always indifference. Sometimes it's clarity, it's wisdom, it's emotional self-respect. And when you develop that wisdom, when you master the art of not reacting, you unlock something even more powerful, the art of the non-response. In today's world, everyone feels the need to reply, to defend, to shout louder. But there is power in silence. A deep, grounded power that says, I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Imagine someone yelling at you, demanding a reaction. Their voice rises, their face flushes with frustration, and yet you remain calm. You don't flinch, you don't even blink. The energy they throw at you, it hits a wall of stillness, and slowly it dissolves. That is non-response in action. That is mastery. Because most people aren't looking for conversation. They're casting emotional fishing lines hoping you'll bite. The best way to win? Don't pick up the bait. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's not about bottling your emotions. It's about observation before reaction. It's about pausing to ask yourself, does this really deserve my energy? Will this discussion lead anywhere? Or is it just a trap pulling me into another cycle of emotional burnout? And once you begin choosing your responses mindfully, something shifts. In the next part, we'll explore how the mind, once trained to pause, gains the strength not only to observe, but to rise above. In the last part, we explored the art of the non-response, the quiet power of stepping back rather than being pulled into emotional traps. But what exactly are we protecting when we choose silence? The answer lies in something incredibly valuable: our attention. Attention is one of the most precious resources you have. Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. And the ego knows this. That's why it constantly whispers, "Don't let them get away with that. If you stay silent, you're weak. If you don't fight back, you've lost." But is that really true? In reality, there's nothing more powerful than being unshaken. True power is when someone tries to disturb your peace and fails. Calmness disarms. It throws people off balance. It's unexpected in a world obsessed with quick reactions. There's a beautiful saying in Buddhist philosophy: "The wind can stir up dust, but it cannot move a mountain." When you practice the art of the non-response, you become that mountain, still, grounded, and unshakable. It doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you choose what deserves your energy, and more importantly, what doesn't. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because your silence says more than any argument could. When someone tries to provoke you and gets nothing back, no anger, no panic, no emotional reaction, they realize they have no control over you. And that realization is disarming. But beyond protecting you from unnecessary drama, this practice does something even more profound. It trains the mind. When you consistently choose to observe without reacting, you start to see emotions for what they really are: temporary waves, anger, frustration, the urge to defend yourself. They rise and fall like the tide. If you don't feed them, they fade. And that is the true gift of non-reaction, inner freedom. When you no longer need to prove yourself, when you no longer seek validation in every conversation, you begin to access a peace that is no longer dependent on external approval. And in that space of stillness, something rare and powerful begins to emerge: clarity. Without the noise of meaningless debates, you gain time to think, to create, and to invest your attention in what truly matters. And here's the life-changing insight: not everything deserves your attention. But here's the key: silence is not always the answer either. Choosing when to speak and when to stay silent, that is real wisdom. Because silence for the sake of ignoring isn't strength, but silence born from awareness, that's mastery. We often get this balance wrong. We speak when emotions are high and stay quiet when something truly important needs to be said. And that imbalance creates inner tension, regret, and missed opportunities. Buddhism offers a simple but powerful guide before we speak. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If even one answer is no, perhaps silence is the wiser path. But if all 3 are yes, then your words can become a force for clarity, connection, and even healing. Because sometimes silence protects, and sometimes your voice has the power to change everything. So, what do we do when someone truly crosses a line? When silence is no longer wisdom, but avoidance? In the next part, we'll explore how to find that delicate balance and how mindful speech can become your most powerful act. In the last section, we uncovered the power of speaking with purpose and of remaining silent with wisdom. But what if we could go even further? What if we could disarm conflict before it even begins? Not every situation calls for silence, just as not every disagreement requires a response. If someone is genuinely seeking understanding, if there's space for real dialogue, then yes, your voice matters. In such moments, speaking up isn't just right, it's necessary. Because silence, when used wisely, is not indifference, it's strategy. But how many times have you tried to explain something to someone who simply refuses to listen? No matter how calm or articulate you are, they've already made up their mind. And when that's the case, why waste your energy? You don't need to correct everyone. You don't have to win every debate. In fact, some victories come at the cost of your peace, and simply aren't worth it. Still, there are moments when silence is not an option, when someone crosses a line, when your words could prevent harm, or when speaking up might help someone else. That's when your voice becomes a tool for compassion, not ego. But here's the challenge. We often confuse ego with truth. We think we're speaking up for justice, when really, we're defending our pride. But the ego doesn't want truth. It wants control. It wants to be right. It wants to win. And when you see through that illusion, something shifts. You no longer feel compelled to respond to every challenge. You begin to choose your words wisely. You stop wasting energy on battles that lead nowhere, and start investing it where it truly counts. This is where life starts to make sense. Because when you know when to be silent and when to speak, you unlock something even greater, the ability to disarm conflict before it ever takes root. Many people think avoiding an argument means walking away or giving in. But there's a smarter way, one that's not about avoidance, but about intention. Here's the truth. Most arguments don't begin with logic. They begin with emotion, frustration, insecurity, anger. And if you meet that energy with the same energy, a clash is inevitable. But if you interrupt the pattern, if you stay calm while others escalate, everything changes. The argument loses its fuel. How do you do that? Start with simple, non-defensive phrases like, "I see your point. Let's talk when we're both calm." These aren't admissions of defeat. They're tactical choices that de-escalate tension and deny the other person the reaction they're looking for. Another strategy? Don't take everything personally. Often, people argue not because of what you did, but because of what they're carrying inside. They're looking for an outlet, and if you refuse to be that outlet, they lose momentum. A neutral response like, "I'm not going to argue about this right now," or even silence, can stop the conflict in its tracks. And believe it or not, humor can be a secret weapon. If someone's trying to provoke you, expecting an emotional outburst, but instead you remain calm, or even lightly joke, it diffuses the moment. You're not making fun of the situation. You're simply refusing to hand over your emotional power. The most important truth here is this. You are never obligated to engage in every conflict someone tries to start. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't need to win. You can walk away. And sometimes, that's the strongest move of all. Because when you walk away without a word, you're not surrendering. You're reclaiming something far more precious. Your peace. And when you start applying these strategies, a powerful realization dawns. True strength doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from not needing to. That's when everything begins to shift. You gain the freedom to detach from anything that doesn't add value to your life. You start living with genuine inner peace, a peace that can't be shaken by opinions, judgments, or provocations. Can you imagine waking up one day and realizing that nothing external can disturb your inner calm? That no matter what someone says, no matter how hard they try to push your buttons, it doesn't reach you. Like rain falling on a still pond, it ripples briefly, but the stillness returns. That is the power of mastering emotional detachment. And no, it's not about apathy or pretending not to care. It's about knowing that not everything deserves your energy. When you understand that, you shed a weight you may not have even known you were carrying. Because the truth is, most people live at the mercy of the world around them. A rude comment can ruin their day. A disagreement can spiral into self-doubt. Criticism makes them feel they must defend themselves immediately. Their peace is reactive, controlled by everything outside of them. But when you stop reacting, when you stop letting others dictate your emotional state, something amazing happens. You take back control. Think about it. How many of your worst days weren't bad because of what happened, but because of how you responded? How much stress have you created just by engaging in things you could have walked away from? When you learn to let go, to detach, you begin seeing life differently. You stop giving power to meaningless triggers. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours in the first place. This isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about becoming intentional, about becoming selective with your energy. And most of the time, when you pause and truly ask yourself, does this deserve a reaction? The answer is clear. It doesn't. So what keeps us so tightly bound to these emotional reactions? Why do we find it so hard to let go, even when we know it's hurting us? In the next part, we'll explore the deeper root of this suffering, attachment, and how Buddhist wisdom teaches us to rise above it. In the last section, we explored how detaching from conflict doesn't mean giving up. It means taking back your peace. But when you truly embody this state, something even more profound begins to unfold. You stop reacting altogether because nothing shakes you anymore. There's something more valuable than being right in an argument, more liberating than proving your point. It's freedom, the freedom to no longer be controlled by reactions. When you reach this level, everything starts to shift. You're no longer a slave to other people's chaos. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to those who aren't listening. You stop wasting your time and energy trying to earn approval from those who were never interested in understanding you to begin with. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean letting others walk over you. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect. What it does mean is that you respond from stillness, not from impulse. You draw your boundaries, not through shouting or defending, but by holding your peace with unwavering strength. Because nothing confuses an aggressor more than a calm presence that refuses to engage. And here's the beauty. Once you master this, people start to respond differently. Those who once provoked you stop trying because you don't react anymore. Those who used to argue with you grow quiet because they realize you're no longer playing the same game. Slowly but surely, you begin attracting a new energy, one that mirrors the peace you've built within. It's the kind of peace that can't be faked. It doesn't depend on others agreeing with you. It doesn't require applause, approval, or having the last word. And once you've tasted this peace, you'll never want to go back. Because true freedom isn't the ability to say or do whatever you want. It's the inner knowing that you don't need anything from anyone to be at peace. No matter what someone says, no matter how loudly they provoke, you remain centered, grounded, unshaken. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, don't fight it. Don't explain. Don't react. Just smile. Stay still. Let them exhaust themselves. Let their words pass through you like wind through the trees, heard but not held. Because when you stop giving your energy to things that don't matter, you reclaim something infinitely more powerful: your peace. Now, how do we take this deeper? How do we not just resist reacting, but retrain the mind itself, so we no longer even perceive provocations as meaningful? That's where the real transformation begins. Ignoring what doesn't deserve your attention is just the first step. But the deeper work is about building an unshakable mind, one that isn't easily triggered, one that doesn't have to try to stay calm, because calm has become its natural state. So how do you reach that level? It begins with understanding that inner peace isn't just a concept, it's a practice. Just like building muscle, emotional strength requires daily training. Start by becoming the observer of your own mind. Whenever you feel triggered, wanting to argue, justify, or lash out, pause. Don't focus on the outside. Turn inward. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Can you see it? That space between stimulus and response? The space where peace lives? That's not suppression. That's not numbness. It's power. The power of choosing where you place your attention. Most people go through life on autopilot, reacting, defending, overthinking. They argue over things that don't matter. They waste hours trying to prove their worth to people who aren't even listening. They spend days carrying emotional weight from situations that didn't deserve a "where is this coming from?" Is it fear, ego, insecurity? Understanding why you feel the urge to react is more powerful than simply suppressing the reaction. Buddhism calls this detachment. It's the practice of reminding yourself that nothing is permanent, not emotions, not opinions, not even your sense of self. That argument that feels huge today, a year from now, will it matter? Each time you feel agitated, ask, will this still be important a year from now? If the answer is no, why give it power today? Meditation is another cornerstone. You don't need hours. Even 5 minutes a day of breathing, of anchoring your awareness to the present, builds mental clarity. Because learning to let thoughts pass without clinging to them is the same as letting provocations pass without reacting to them. If you can calm the storm within you, no storm outside can shake you. And don't forget, your environment matters. You can't always control what's around you, but you can choose what you feed your mind. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, arguments, and noise, your mind will reflect that. But if you fill your days with calm, with meaningful conversations, with silence and stillness, peace will become your default. Even humor helps. Not everything is worth taking seriously. Some conflicts only upset us because we've assigned them far too much importance. But when you learn to laugh at the small stuff, at life's little dramas, you rise above them. This isn't denial, it's wisdom. It's realizing you don't need to carry every weight that's handed to you. Over time, you'll notice that triggers no longer touch you, not because you're forcing yourself to stay calm, but because they no longer resonate with you. There's nothing inside you for the chaos to stick to. That's when you know you've built an unshakable mind. Because in the end, it's not just about avoiding arguments. It's not just about ignoring criticism. It's about living from a peace that depends on nothing and no one. A peace that cannot be shaken, no matter what comes your way. And now, the final step of this journey. Let's explore how to carry this peace into every aspect of life, how to live it, breathe it, and share it with the world. In the previous part, we explored the power of building an unshakable mind, one that's no longer reactive, but grounded in clarity and peace. Now, let's take one final step, learning how to carry this calm with you. everywhere you go. True calm isn't just sitting quietly with your eyes closed. It's about walking through life unshaken, unbothered by judgment, unaffected by provocation, and unburdened by the need for approval. When you reach that point, something inside you clicks. You realize that freedom was never about controlling what happens around you. It was always about mastering what happens within you. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you no longer felt the need to respond to every rude comment, every subtle insult, every attempt to trigger a reaction. Moment of their peace. But when you step outside of that cycle, when you consciously choose peace over conflict, you unlock a level of freedom that very few ever taste. This doesn't mean staying silent when your voice is needed. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or injustice. It means knowing when to speak and when to protect your energy. It means realizing that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every opinion deserves your attention. Buddhism reminds us again and again, suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how we respond. And this is where your power lives. When you stop letting other people's moods control your emotions. When you no longer need to be understood in order to feel whole. When your peace no longer depends on external agreement or approval. That's when you truly become free. So here's your invitation. Take this practice into your everyday life. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. The next time you feel triggered, breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? And if the answer is no, walk away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Choose peace over pride. Choose calm over chaos. Because in the end, you never really win an argument. But when you protect your inner peace, you win something far greater, your emotional freedom. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, share one phrase that captures what you're taking away from this video. Maybe it's a Buddhist teaching we discussed. Maybe it's your own personal realization. What is one sentence you can carry with you? A sentence that reminds you to stay centered, to stay unshaken, to protect your energy? If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Every week, we explore ideas, practices, and timeless wisdom that help us build a life rooted in peace, presence, and real inner strength. And if there's someone in your life who's constantly getting pulled into conflict, who reacts too quickly, who feels overwhelmed by drama, please share this with them. Sometimes, a single shift in perspective is all it takes to change everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for showing up, not just for this video, but for yourself. Until next time, protect your peace, because nothing is more valuable than that. Star.